Hello and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. This is one of our monthly special roundtables. I am one of your hosts. I'm Garry.
I'm Maria.
I'm Adam.
I'm Jordan.
I'm Harry.
And I'm Mark.
There we go. There we go. I hope you are all keeping well and safe. And if you are listening to this as a follow-on from last month, I hope you enjoyed last month's roundtable. It was very cool to get these guys together. We're one short this evening though, so unfortunately Matt can't be with us, but he's here in spirit. It's here, sad face. He's here in spirit. But the rest of the gang's here, and we're going to talk about... We've got some interesting subjects for you this month. It is the 40th anniversary of the Peter Davison era being aired on our screens. So we're going to talk about some Davison stuff, some of our fave eps, and any standout moments that we have for Mr. Davison. And then we're going to crack on to something that we've touched on a little bit in the last episode and a couple of times on the podcast, which is the potential for some expanded or multiverse stuff to do with Doctor Who, and more specifically using some of the technology that they've used over at LucasFilm and Star Wars to bring a young Mark Hamill back, which they've done a couple of times now. So I get the feeling that technology is, the floodgates are going to open now, and there's going to be some interesting stuff happening across some popular, probably sci-fi shows to begin with. So we're going to talk about that stuff. So before we get cracking with all that, I'm going to do the usual roundy table, excuse the pun. So Maria, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great, Garry. I've got this week off, so no rushing around for me. I'm really good, thank you.
Lovely. Oh, I love weeks off when you don't have to do anything. Oh, nice.
Lying.
Harry, how are you doing, buddy?
Nothing.
Harry.
Yes.
Mr. Potter, how are you doing?
Mr. Potter. Oh, man. I had that a lot throughout school. Yeah, I'm doing all right, thank you, Garry. Yeah, and I'm happy to be on another roundtable. I was gutted I missed the biscuit and tea chat last time. I was very upset about that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we mentioned that on last week's episode as well. I think the old tea and biscuit chat. Essentially, the summary is, you can tell a lot from a person from whether they actually dunk their biscuits or not, and then the type of biscuits that they dunk. It's very important. So, and I think Adam said, if it's a bit of a deal breaker, if they don't dunk the biscuit, then that's a problem. That's
yes, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
I normally dunk about 3 at once.
Yeah.
A whole pack.
Yeah, I went through a phase of dunking Twix bars. Yeah, it's quite nice. Anyway,
I dunked some
Glad you're doing well,
Galaxy
Harry.
chocolate in my tea earlier today, and
it
really elevated the quality of the chocolate for me. So yeah, just a life hack for anybody who wants to, incorporate that into their day.
It changes the texture of the chocolate, and it makes it, it gives it this kind of, give it a go, listener. You won't be disappointed. You can't do it with all chocolate though. You couldn't do it like a Bounty bar or something ridiculous like that. It has to be a biscuit-based chocolate bar. So there we go. Use that tip if you want. You don't have to. We're just throwing them out there for free. Jordan, how you doing, dude?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah.
Righto. Mark, how are you doing? How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, not too bad.
It's a short and sweet moment from Jordan this week. Yeah, I'm doing fine. Just move on. Here we go. Mark, how you doing, buddy? Mark.
Yes, hello. I'm well, and have slightly stronger Wi-Fi. I think. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if everybody's lagging because of me or them. Yeah, I'm good. I've got a beer. I'm chatting about Doctor Who with some nice people. What could be finer? What could be finer?
Indeedy. And lastly, my co-host, Mr. Geeks, Adam. How you doing, my friend?
Yes, I'm very good, mate. Yes, I was actually listening to you earlier, Mark, and on the Time Lash podcast, your review of Rancor Av Kolos. And I think you might have needed a few beers just to get through that.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
Yeah, We don't drink
Rancor.
when we record the podcast, do we, Gary? Because we tend to do it in the morning. But I fear if it was a evening recorded session, we might be on it. We might get on it.
It'd be game over, mate. If we did it in the evening
It
with
would.
any kind of alcohol involved, that would not be good. Not good.
No.
But yeah, the Time Lash stuff that Mark does. Sorry, what's your co-host name on that, Mark? I always forget.
My co-host Ben is
Ben, that's
do
it.
do the show with. So yeah, because I mean, me and him met in the good old days of sort of Doctor Who pub meetings before the show came back. So we always try to kind of recapture that vibe in the podcast. So we used to record it way back in the day, actually in a pub. Now we just do it over the internet with whatever booze we have in the house.
Oh, sweet. So you used to do it in the pub?
Yeah,
Nice.
Because Ben used to run a comedy night in a pub in Edinburgh, so we had the use of the function room. So we just recorded it up the stairs.
Nice.
Fantastic. You're both going to be at the BFI as well,
Yes.
and so are you, aren't
Yeah,
you,
we are.
Maria? So it's a bit of a blue box representing at the.
I'll be
at
there
this one,
too. It'll
which
be
is
my
gonna cool.
first one.
Are you going as well, Harry?
Yeah, Maria kindly offered me.
Your
a
first
ticket,
one?
Yeah, never been
Yeah,
before.
Harry bought a
Blimey.
ticket from me, so he's coming along as well. So it's going to be fantastic, guys, to see you all.
Wowzers.
lovely.
What could be better than
What?
Colin Baker and Davros and all that stuff? Daleks. It'll be great.
What could be better?
That is going to be cool. Wicked.
Time lapse.
Drinking
Could have been
afterwards is going to be the cool bit.
Are you off to this one, Jordan? Or am I the only one that's missing it?
No, I'm not going to this one. It's on a
Jordan.
Saturday, and I'm working.
Oh,
And
Oh, no.
I've let the side down a little bit. But I know, it's especially since I love Revelation of the Daleks as well, and it was filmed down near me, so it's sort of like it would have been nice to go and see it. But you know, I saw City of Death, so it's fine.
Oh, that would have been a good
But
one.
I hope
to
you all
see.
enjoy yourself because it was a really good. Yeah, it was.
Are you guys all members of the BFI? Because it seems the only way you can actually get a ticket these days is if you are a member of the BFI.
I used to use a friend's membership, but I needed 3 tickets for this screening, so I ended up using my friend's membership and then my own BFI membership that I then bought. But to be honest, it's already paying back, and I don't mind supporting British film. It's my bread and butter in a way.
Yeah, we've been saying for ages, haven't we, Adam, about potentially getting one. I think every year at some point we say we really should get one at some point because the tickets just fly out the door for members only. I think you can, if you're lucky, you can bag one if you're online right on the time it says tickets are going live. There's normally like 6 left or something. For the Doctor
I was
Who
gonna
events
say.
anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
but no, I'm not a member. I was a member for a year, and it still didn't help me get tickets. They sell out so fast. I think you just have to be like, So I didn't bother renewing mine the following year. I have a friend who gets mine for me, who is a member. But but you're right, Mark. You do get your money's worth from it. They do some great events. Actually, Gaza, while I remember, you're going to love this. They're doing a Wurzel Gummidge event. Yes, they're reissuing with the original from the original film. They're reissuing Wurzel Gummidge, and they're doing a special event at BFI. I only found out about it this afternoon.
Shut
So
up.
we've got to get along
sounds
to
really
that.
Cool.
Yeah. It's like April, I think, sometime. Yeah,
Wow. Just like that, Adam sold me a membership to the BFI.
yeah, exactly.
Immediately. Wow.
So
It's probably the only way you'll get a
re-releasing
ticket
Wurzel
for that.
Gummidge on Blu-ray or something then? Is that what they're doing? Or?
They've found the original prints. Sorry, it's the Wheels of Gummidge podcast now. But yeah, they've just quickly. I'll just quickly tell you they've discovered the original prints finally somewhere, and someone's actually gonna put them out on as HD. I think.
That is amazing.
I think it's Fabulous Films, who don't have the best reputation when it comes to remastering, but yeah, it's Fabulous Films are putting out. They do a lot of classic television DVDs, so yeah. Hopefully it'll be good.
Yeah. Because they did release it, was it a year or 2 years ago? And everybody was just really confused because they had access to most of the original films back then, but decided not to go through with the remaster. So you just got exactly the same set
That's
as when
right.
they released it back in 2002, whenever it was. So
And
that's
the
pretty-
quality
yeah.
is terrible. It's like the first episode looks like it's black and white. The colours are so drained, aren't they? It'd be really nice to see it restored in some way. Such a good series. I suppose it is connected to Doctor Who, listener, because it is John Pertwee, so we can kind of bring it back round.
Yeah, there's a tenuous link there. Sure.
Very.
Yes.
My headcanon is
Okie
that
dokie.
the third Doctor was very bored when he was exiled on Earth, so he just decided to be a scarecrow for a while.
I love that.
Is
like,
that
I
what
can't
gave the
fix
master
the
the idea
TARDIS.
in Time in the Rani?
Maybe.
Sorry, Mark of the Rani.
Margarati. Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway.
man. Okay, well, I mean, it's possible. It's your headcanon, but it's, I don't know. He's annoyed the Briggs one too many times, been turfed out, won't let him back in. What does he do with himself? I don't know. Anyway.
Or maybe the family of blood went back in time and got their revenge.
See, the possibilities are endless. Hire us to write Doctor Who.
I know you're listening, Russell. You normally do. Take note. You've got a whole well of just talent here, begging to be plucked, shoved into the writing team for the new series. I'll leave that door open. Go over to the Twitter page, a Big Blue Box. There's a link there to email for business inquiries. I'll set you up. Don't worry. What's that, Russell? I'm busy. I'll call him back tomorrow. I know what it's about. Anyway, we should crack on. The first bit of the episode, we're going to celebrate 40 years since Peter Davison landed on the screens as our fifth Doctor. Fifth Doctor? Yeah, of course it is. Why did I question myself? Fifth Doctor. Yes. So it's kind of a weird one, the old Fifth Doctor era, for a few reasons. Firstly, a lot of people don't like it, which is kind of weird. Whenever you talk to people in the pub, Mark will know about this, talking about Doctor Who in the pub, you often get onto the subject of lists, like who's your favourite Doctor? And like what's your favourite era and all this stuff. And typically, Davison's era and Colin Bacon's era are inevitably shoved at the bottom of said list. Always happens, inevitably. Unless like you're the odd fan that like, oh, I absolutely love Davison, he's like my favourite. Unless you're that kind of person. And then the other reason is that it was just a really weird time for production on Doctor Who at that moment, because if you've read Peter Davison's biography or if you've seen any interviews that he's done over the years, he wasn't really sure if he wanted to actually do it or not. I think he was just, it wasn't his dream job or anything like that. It was just, his gig came along at the time and it was, and it was something to do. But I think the main, I wouldn't say issue, but the main thing was that it came off the back of one of the most successful Doctors and successful times in the show's history. So, a lot of pressure, a lot of, big boots to fill and so on. Having said all that, I actually really like a lot of the Davison era, and I really like him as the Doctor. And I think it's one of those things where, as Big Finish has put out a lot of his stuff over the years, as they inevitably do with every Doctor, he's really grown, I think, in public opinion and whatnot. Because I think if he didn't do any Big Finish and all we had was just the TV era, I think that would be a bit of a shame, because, I don't think he had the strongest scripts for for most of his stories. I think out of his, how many seasons did he do? 2, 3? 3. Out of the 3 that he did, I can only pick out like maybe a couple from each one that are absolute belters, and the rest of them are fairly standard. So what I'd like to do is do a bit of a round and see what you guys did like about. We're not going to do any negative ninny stuff. We're not going to do anything. Mark, keep that.
Well, no, I was going to just say that it's interesting you say the Davison era is not that well liked, because I feel like in the past few years there's been a bit of a renaissance, and I don't know if that's just because back in the sort of late 90s and early 2000s, Doctor Who fandom was very much like those people that grew up with John Pertwee and Tom Baker. But obviously, as time goes on, the elder statesmen of the fan group end up becoming the Davison fans, or things like that. And also Stephen Moffat and David Tennant are massive fans of the era, and I think that certainly helped, maybe sort of change people's estimations a bit. So there you go, something positive with the Davison era, which is one of my least favourites. There you go.
Nice, thank you. So I'm going to do a round and just ask you guys what your what's some of your fave episodes from his era, and if you've got any really cool favourite moments that he did as one of his performances in those episodes, or something else that he's done, maybe the Five Doctors, that kind of thing that stood out for you. So Jordan, first up, what's your any fave eps that you've got from his era?
Oh, Castrovalva, Black Orchid, Earthshock, The Visitation, I love The Awakening. I think that's a good one. Caves of Androzani, I think, is a good one. Okay. Terminus. Planet Fire.
Would it be easy?
Christ.
I was going to say, would it be easy to list the ones you don't like?
Yeah. Yeah. Warriors of the Deep, that's rubbish.
Oh Jesus! Well, I think Jordan just likes
Warriors
the
of the Deep.
Davison
Yeah, that's
era.
rubbish.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any? I'm afraid to ask.
I love,
hold on.
I love
So
The
what's that?
Awakening. Yeah, I think
Warriors
it's a
of
very
the
good
Deep.
little story.
Oh,
I did say Caves,
Okay.
yeah. It took me
But
a
you like
while
The
to
Awakening?
like Caves of Androzani,
Okay.
actually. I
cool.
didn't like it to begin with, but
Nice.
it's grown on me over
Did you
the
say
years.
Caves? By the way, did you say Caves? The Androzani? Did you say that? Okay. Right.
I like to be controversial.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
I
Fave
think
Fifth Doctor moment.
I think it's the bit in
And you
Caves of
can't say
Androzani
playing
where
cricket. You cannot
he's
say playing
regenerating.
cricket,
He
'cause
can
that's
see
too
he's
obvious.
regenerating, but he's pushing it back so he can go and save Perry. I think that's his best moment. I think.
Okay, Harry. Fave Fifth Doctor episodes or stories.
Well, I was very lucky at the Christmas just gone because Santa dropped season 19 on Blu-ray down the chimney. So
Yay.
and I've not watched all of them yet. And I will say as well, I haven't seen all of Davison's era. I've seen probably about most of it, but but because I saw them recently, two stories that I really, really enjoyed were Black Orchid, like Jordan said, and Fall to Doomsday I really liked as well. What I really liked about Fall to Doomsday was that it showed, I think, the companions, like how different they were, like that TARDIS team, their different approaches to solving problems. So like Adric being kind of very like logical and methodical, and Tegan just wanting to kind of run away, I guess. But yeah, I think those two stick out in my mind. And favourite Davison moment, I mean, just his whole performance in Caves of Androzani is just stellar. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a Doctor Who fan or a fan of Davison's era that disputes that. So yeah, I really like Davison's era. I think towards the end of Tom Baker, like that season that he did with J&T was it was a very troubled sort of production, but I feel like Peter Davison's Doctor marries better with John Nathan Turner as a producer. I think that's probably when Doctor Who peaked in the 80s. Not peaked overall in history, but definitely in the 80s. I think Davison was the highlight.
Nice answer, Harry. Cool. Maria, what are you saying about Davison's era?
Oh, well, obviously, it was my era growing up, so I suppose there's a bit of nostalgia there for me because it season 19 was probably the first season where I was like a real genuine super fan, and I was really excited to see Peter Davison at that time. So season 19, I would say I loved all of it. Possibly, if I was to pick a weak one, it would probably be Time Flight. And I think it's a bit. Oh, obviously, you've got the Master who's dressed up as a villain, and you don't really know why he's dressed up as a villain, but he is. But I love all of that season. As I say, I think that first season is a really strong one for Peter Davison. I really enjoy it anyway. If I was to pick some stories from the other seasons, I would probably say I really like Snake Dance. I like some of the ideas in it. And it's got obviously quite a strong role still for Tegan, who he's one of my favourite companions. So I would say Snake Dance, Love Enlightenment as well, and the Five Doctors. That's part of that season as well. Not so keen on Arc of Infinity. Don't really like that story very much. Don't really buy all the stuff with Omega, really. The last season, I was really surprised when Peter Davison said that he thought that, that was the season that he really kind of then regretted kind of giving up the role of kind of being the Doctor. I mean, it's not a bad season. I would say again, like Jordan, The Awakening's a strong story. Resurrection of the Daleks is a good story, a bit sort of bloodthirsty for me and a bit kind of really downbeat. I mean, I watched it a while ago and it just kind of made me feel like Delia depressed, at the end of it. Caves of Androzani, I know everyone raves about it. I haven't seen it in ages, but it's a really good story. Obviously, it's got the regeneration at the end of it. But yeah, no, I understand what Mark's saying about Peter Davison getting not always being a popular Doctor, but I like him. He had a really difficult role to kind of come into because Tom Baker had been in the role for so long, for 7 years, and he was going to come in and be completely different. And I think people don't always like change, so maybe him being compared to Tom Baker is probably a bit unfortunate, but I like him. I really enjoy his era. He's definitely one of the better Doctors. If I was going to pick other classic Doctors, there would be other Doctors below him. So I'm a fan of his era. That's all I'm going to say, really. Yeah.
Nice. Mr. Weekly co-host, ads, fave eps.
I can't believe none of you have mentioned the King's Demons. I mean, it's an absolute belter. No, it's probably the one Davison story that I really don't like. But I'm kind of on the same page as Maria because I grew up with Davison as the Doctor, and I think a lot of the stories which are quite below par, shall we say, I have a lot of affection for because of nostalgia. I mean, I think he's got some great stories, and I really love the fact that so many people like Black Orchid because I loved it as a kid and I absolutely love it now, even though it's a real strange little two-parter, which it's just an oddity, and I love Black Orchid, and I know that Peter hates it, and it's always funny when you listen to the DVD commentary. He's really not a fan of that story, and he hated the Harlequin costume, which I love. I just loved seeing the Doctor in a different outfit. So I really like the Davison era. It's not to say I consider it to be the best or the stories to be amazing or anything like that, but I've got a lot of love for it, and I think it does get a bit overlooked. He is often described as the beige Doctor, and I totally get why people think that. I think he is a bit bland, and I hate to say that because I love the Fifth Doctor, but I get why some people find him a bit bland. But stories like Resurrection of the Daleks I absolutely love, even though it's really grim and just full of so much death. But again, it's the thing that as a kid I was just enthralled by it, and I love it now. I love the gritty location, Tegan's exit, because it makes sense that she would leave after seeing all that death on screen. So and Visitation I think is beautiful. I think his whole first season's pretty good, actually. I know you like Four to Doomsday, which is not one of my favourites, but I think it's still pretty cool. I like the bit where the guy opens his chest and he's got all the wires in it. Makes me laugh. I think it's some really strong stuff in it. I think his second season has got a few oddities which I don't really get on board with. A lot of people like Enlightenment. I'm not so fond of that, but obviously the Five Doctors is amazing. And if I was to pick some couple of moments that really stand out for me, Peter's Doctor, I think he definitely gets stronger in his third season. I think this is when we really see Peter start to get to grips with who his Doctor was. Feels a shame actually that he didn't have one more season, really. But what was it? Which story was it? Shock, obviously. I like the moment when he's having the disagreement with the cyber leader and he makes that speech about smelling a flower and all that sort of stuff. That sticks in my mind. And I also like the bit where he confronts Davros with the gun and he says he's there is his executioner. I think it shows that tougher side of the Fifth Doctor, which we don't get to see that much. But I do like that when he really steps up to the mark. So, yeah, I think he is a bit underrated, but I do get why people find him that he gets a bit overlooked. I can totally see why. But I'm a fan of the era. I like it a lot.
Good. And finally, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, the Davison era has one of my all-time favourite Doctor Who stories in it, which is Kinder. I think what's really good about the Davison era, certainly the first two series, is it doesn't always work. Like, I don't think 4 to Doomsday works as well as it could do, but it's going for quite high concept, like sci-fi ideas in a way that Doctor Who hasn't really done up until that point. So I've always really liked Kinder because it just felt completely different from the Doctor Who I'd been watching up to, when I bought it on video, decades ago. So that was a really memorable one for me. I just think, and I think one of the reasons I love it so much is that it does this great thing of pairing at that point the youngest Doctor with a slightly older female scientist, and I think it's such a great dynamic, and it's such a shame that nobody thought about that in the original casting of the series, because I think that could have worked really well. I think Peter Davison and Nerys Hughes are the greatest Doctor and companion pairing that we never had. I think they're terrific, because I think Adam's right. I think Davison does get drowned out, and I think partly that's due to a kind of ineffectiveness of the character. He does seem quite ineffectual, but also because he's just got so many companions. It's a very crowded TARDIS, and a crowded TARDIS works when you've got William Hartnell, who's an older actor who needs kind of younger actors to kind of do the action sequences or do this or do that. But when it's Peter Davison, I don't really understand what the cast are doing. It's not that Jodie Whittaker thing of, well, what we'll do is we'll have a diverse cast of companions that can be different identification figures. It's 2 aliens and an Australian air hostess. It just doesn't quite work. So I think the stories for me that I really like are the ones where Davison does get to stand out as the Doctor. So it's Kinder, it's Snake Dance, and Frontios as well. I'm quite a big fan of Frontios. I think there's some really horrible images in that don't feel quite as grim and over the top as something like Resurrection of the Daleks or Caves. And I mean, I love Caves, but then I also go through periods where I don't, because it just feels like a bit of a slog in sort of the way that I think Maria feels about Resurrection of the Daleks. I am sometimes just a bit like, ooh, I feel a bit sad now. So yeah, and as for best Davison moments, I think, like I say, anything with Nerys Hughes and Kinder. I do like the bit in 4 to Doomsday where he turns to Adric and says, "Now listen here to me, you little idiot," and gives him a talking to for siding with the monarch. That's really good as well. But yeah.
Yeah, that should have been a backhander moment, shouldn't it? Yeah.
I suppose with Davison, I suppose that the issue with the companions is, they seem to argue a lot amongst themselves. Then they don't seem happy to be there, if that kind of makes sense. And I suppose that is a bit difficult sometimes when you're watching the stories, because you would just like them to get on and kind of like each other, so that sometimes can be a little bit difficult, because Adric, can be quite petulant at times, and Tegan doesn't like him, and then Nis is trying to be the peacemaker, and then you've got Peter Davison, who's obviously trying to they kind of describe his Doctor as an old man in a young man's body, so he's trying to be this kind of older, kind of crotchety, argumentative, I suppose, kind of Doctor, and sometimes it is a little bit jarring at times. But then again, I kind of like the diversity of the TARDIS crew as well. They are all quite different. So, everyone will take something from those series. I think I quite liked having three of them, but you could see obviously with the way the first series went on that they had to get rid of somebody, because obviously there wasn't enough screen time for everybody to kind of get enough out of the stories. So I think probably paring it down to two companions, in the second series, was quite good. And then obviously, people came and went. But I quite like the diversity. I know, Mark, you were saying that that it's two aliens and an air hostess, but I kind of quite like that. I mean, I think too much now in the new series, everyone's from modern day Earth, and there's nothing kind of interesting about them, if that kind of makes sense. Anyway, that's just my point of view.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Definitely. What I thought was interesting what you were saying is that I think I love Davison as an actor. I think Davison's a great actor. One of my favorite TV shows is A Very Peculiar Practice, with him, David Troughton, Graham Crowden, Barbara Flynn, and in that he is somebody who is surrounded by arguing oddballs. But it works. It works in that. Whereas with Doctor Who, because he's supposed to be the authority figure, but I think he's kind of constantly kind of shouted down in Doctor Who, which you don't want. But in A Very Peculiar Practice, he's shouted down. But that's kind of the point. I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting comparison.
I think that's got the makings of a new sitcom, though. Two aliens and an air hostess. That sounds like an American thing that's on its way. For sure. Oh, some good picks there, guys. I'm surprised nobody plucked out Time Flight as an absolute belter. You missed that one. Joking, of course. I really like Earthshock. I think that's one of my fave episodes, just because it's got not the. It's just I just think it's a very well paced story for 4 parts. It's just got some great stuff, and obviously the ending is very dramatic and all that stuff. So that's very cool. And I also really like, obviously, Caves. I very much like that. The Five Doctors, and also I quite like you guys have said. What's it called? The Visitation, of course. The Visitation, but what's the one? Black Orchid. Sorry, yes, I really like that one too. I can't remember the name of the episode. So some good ones there. And I think I told you guys not to pick anything to do with cricket as a good moment from Davison, but I will say that involving cricket, the drifting out into space with the vacuum hose and then throwing the cricket ball was a highlight.
It was sick.
For all of us. I think, yes.
Can I also just ask...
happy 40th birthday. Whoa.
Sorry, Garry, for interrupting.
Go for it. No,
does anyone remember a sketch involving Peter Davison, Mark Gatiss, and David Williams, where Mark Gatiss is like a Doctor Who superfan, and like they kidnap Peter Davison like in the middle of the night or something? I think it was on the DVD for An Unearthly Child, or like on the beginning box set. For some reason, I've just remembered it just now, and I haven't thought about it in years.
It was originally from, they did like a Doctor Who night on BBC
It was,
2.
yeah. It was like a 40th
and Mark
anniversary.
Gatiss and David Williams did 3 sketches, one of which was quite controversial, because it was basically, it's the pitch meeting for the original Doctor Who. And so basically Sidney Newman goes into the BBC Director General's office and basically pitches the whole 26 years of Doctor Who as basically just one idea. And there's a line in it which I won't repeat because I know this is a family show, which upset Colin Baker and Peter Davison. Colin Baker especially. Well, after Tom Baker, we'll have, just any old with an equity card, was basically the gag. Didn't go down very well. But yeah, so the kidnapping sketch was one of those 3 sketches. It is very funny. Can I kiss Peter Davison now?
I think it's
And then the lights go
Mark
on.
Gatiss' finest hour, you know.
I've not even heard of that. Have you seen that before, Adam? We haven't spoken about that before.
Yeah, it's funny. Now Mark mentions that line. It's really weird. It's just come straight. It has honestly just come straight back to me. I do remember that. Yeah. Yeah, they had like a TARDIS prop in a quarry or so. I don't know. I do vaguely remember it anyway. Yeah. I didn't realise it was on one of the DVDs. I'll have to try and...
Yeah, that's how I discovered it, because I would have been an infant, I think, when it was airing as part of that Doctor Who night. I think it's on the beginning box set, or just on YouTube. Yeah.
Yes.
I have to dig that out and have a watch, I think, later. That sounds rather funny.
I've never seen that. I've never heard of it before. You've got me curious now. I think I'll have to go on YouTube and see if I can find it. Sounds really interesting.
Colin Baker's had it removed from every social platform.
Old Cole. Yeah.
He takes everything so personally.
Anything else to add to Davison's era before we wrap this bit up? No? Yes? All good? Excellent. So, a very big happy 40th birthday to the Fifth Doctor's era. So, Castrovalva, when was that? First, 90, yeah. We're a bit late though. January 1982 for Castrovalva. So we're a month out, but there we go. Happy birthday. Yes, there you go. That'll do. Right, moving swiftly on. Multiverse stuff in the world of Doctor Who. Notepad and pen, Russell, for this bit. So, we're going to talk about some multiverse stuff because we have touched on it, as I mentioned earlier in the show. But I do feel like, and Mark made a very good point, if you've read Mark's article on the website, which was out, I think was 2 weeks ago, he made a very, very good point about specifically spin-off media and reusing older characters from Doctor Who, but they've been voiced by other people and that sort of thing, and a combination of some of the stuff that's happened recently in more popular, depending on your opinion, more popular franchises with bigger audiences and bigger budgets and whatnot, have used technology to bring either deceased actors back, or they've used it to bring older actors back in their younger years quite convincingly these days. I think the first time they did this really convincingly was in Gladiator, when they brought what's his name back at the very end, Oliver Reed, because he had passed away halfway through or 2/3 of the way through filming, but he was needed for a scene later on, and they brought him back and touched him up a little bit and stuff. That sounds really wrong. You know what I mean? They enhanced the look and feel and all of that stuff. They did that and it looked very good. Now fast forward however many decades after that, and we have a very convincing thing. So the thing I want to get some conversation happening on is, do you think we're going to see more spin-offs once Russell kicks his era in, and we're going to see more expanded characters used in those spin-offs as well as the main show? And then the follow-up to that is, do you think they will bring people back to do a Luke Skywalker thing where we could see Patrick Troughton walking around looking very convincingly like he was there, still alive, and is being filmed and so on? So I'm just going to open the floor so everyone wants to jump in. Multiverse, yes or no? First of all, yay or nay? Don't be shy.
All right,
Maria.
I'll go. I think spin-offs are definitely in Doctor Who's future. I think that's true. I mean, it's no longer just a BBC production, is it? It's a co-production with Bad Wolf Productions, which have now been acquired by Sony, after the success of his Dark Materials. So,
yeah.
I would not be surprised if Sony would be interested in exploring the franchise potential of Doctor Who. What form that takes, I don't know. I know there's rumours that David Tennant and Catherine Tate are back for either, a special or like a mini-series or whatever form it's going to take. But I do think the most interesting way to do a Doctor Who spin-off, and I say this as somebody who absolutely loves the Sarah Jane Adventures and tolerates Torchwood, they both quite rigidly follow the Doctor Who model. So it's a monster of the week, but it's set on Earth, and you don't have the time travel element. I think there's more interesting things you can do with the Doctor Who spin-off and like open the universe up. There's so many characters and planets and species that we've met over the past 6 decades that could be completely different series. I mean, you look at Marvel and Star Wars. Although you could argue that it's all the same, it's the same stuff. It's not really. The Mandalorian's a Western. It's not a space opera in the way that Star Wars is, for example. So I think you could do something really interesting with that, with Doctor Who. Like I was thinking, you could do a series about The Division, for example. And I don't necessarily mean a spin-off with the Ruth Doctor. I mean, just actually, what does a shady time agency look like that hires, multiple different alien species? You could do something along the lines of Loki with that, or just do a kind of X-Files time travel-y kind of thing with that. I think would be great. I think there's loads of potential. And I think, as always with Doctor Who, I think the only thing that hampers it is budget, really. So yeah, we just need to see kind of what happens and kind of how that spins off. But I do think the best way forward with Doctor Who spin-offs isn't to just go, all right, let's do a unit series where Kate Stewart investigates a different alien every week, or let's, do something like Flux, do like a long arc over like a few episodes or something like that.
Okay, interesting. Ads. I know you've got some thoughts on this one, dude.
Yeah, no, actually, I think it's really, really interesting, Mark. Actually, I think that does make a lot of sense because Doctor Who does so much world building. There's so much potential that's been thrown out there over the years, and I think you're right, actually, Mark, because we got it in our heads that it's going to be like that format, and it would, like you said, there's so much more they could do with it. So it would be very interesting. What I wouldn't like to see is something you mentioned earlier, Gary. Is I wouldn't want to see like a CGI Pat Troughton. Even if it was good, I just don't want to see it. I feel a little bit uncomfortable about some of the stuff Big Finish is doing with the revoicing, to be honest. It's okay, but I don't know. It's not something personally for me. Some of it's good. Don't get me wrong. I've got a couple of the Big Finish stuff that works quite well, but yeah, when it comes to the CGI thing, I think it's fair enough if it's finishing off something they're already in. But I'm thinking of like Princess Leia at the end of Rogue One. It didn't look that good, and I know technology would have moved on, and it probably could be really good in, say, another 5 years or so, but it feels a little... I guess it's how it's done, but it feels a little disrespectful, so I don't really want to see that. I'm also thinking about the episode where we had loads of doctors. Was it The Name of the Doctor? Where we had actors running around the studio in costumes, and even though they cut it really quickly, it looked rubbish. It's like, well, that's obviously not Tom Baker. So yeah, but yeah, just going back to what Mark was saying, I think there is so much untapped potential with spin-offs with Doctor Who that I think it would be criminal not to do something. I mean, the obvious ones that people talk about, like Ace and Joe Grant, I would absolutely love to see that. But just again, go back to what Mark said, it'd be interesting to really, open that can up and do something a little bit different, which is what I think Russell would do. I don't think he's going to go for the obvious if he does spin-offs. I think he will want to do something that we're not expecting, if you know what I mean. Like the Ace Adventures just feels like it's a little bit too obvious, but as much as I would absolutely love it, like a Charitable Earth thing would be amazing. But and I would have loved to have seen more, Joe Grant, Katie Manning and Stuart Bevan did those little scenes on the Blu-ray sets where they were reunited and back in character, and there was that one where they went out and fought the Autons on the street, and it was just so brilliant. And I was thinking, God, I would love more of that. But yeah, if you could have both, if you could have like a Sarah Jane type thing aimed at a younger audience with Joe Grant or Ace, and then you could have like a more adult spin-off opening the wider universe, I think that would be, a slice of fried gold. It'd be magic.
Interesting. Harry, what do you reckon on this, dude?
I mean, I will happily watch any and all Doctor Who spin-off media. The ideas that, we could be getting like a load of spin-offs under Russell's new reign is really tantalising. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but like I think it does depend on whether the kind of main show does well, because I think at the minute people are generally out of favour with it, and not necessarily either just because of the quality. There are things like reduced episode count and the fact that it's only on every like year and a half nowadays, kind of thing. So I feel like if you sort of if the main show sort of improves, then I feel like there's more of a likelihood of like not just spin-offs becoming a thing, but also being successful and people actually wanting them. In terms of like deceased actors being resurrected digitally, again, I'm sort of with Adam on this one. I feel like it is a little bit disrespectful, and like I don't know, I just find it a bit unsettling. I can't quite put my finger on it, and I think it's a really complicated subject matter, and it's still a really recent thing that filmmakers and that have started doing. So I feel like it's the conversation is going to keep developing over time, and it's a really interesting conversation to have. But I actually think that rather than trying to bring back actors from the dead, why don't we Fraser Hines, he's still alive and kicking, bring back Jamie McCrimmon for an episode, or if not a spin-off, an episode of Doctor Who or something like that, and like we say, Sophie Aldred and Katie Manning, focus on the actors who we've actually got still around. I think that might be a better place to direct their energies, perhaps. So yeah, that's my 2 pennies on it.
Another good answer there, dude. I'm going to ask you all another question in a second, but I just want to get some thoughts from... I'm not sure. While we're waiting to see if Jordan has got over his technical gremlins, let's go to Maria. What do you reckon on this, Maria?
Yeah, I think I agree with Harry about that the main series has to be successful, I think, before they kind of look at expanding into a multi-universe format for something else. I don't know with financial constraints, these days whether it's a real possibility. I mean, it would be great, obviously, if there was something in addition to the main show. I was thinking of things like the Fugitive Doctor, who I thought, would be a kind of natural fit for something like that. They've got a TARDIS, they can travel wherever they want, and we can see more of Ruth and her adventures. And, obviously because of the way it was set up in that she's a fugitive on the run, that could be quite an interesting avenue to explore. Or we could even have somebody like the Master, for instance. I mean, who knows what the Master gets up to when he's not scheming against the Doctor? What's he doing, with his time? Where's he going? Who's he trying to conquer? That might be quite interesting to look at. I think with regards to other characters coming back, I think I do feel quite doubtful, and as Adam has said, I think to bring back actors that have passed away, I think would feel really disrespectful. I mean, what is the point of it? Are we trying to recapture, past glories, bringing people back in that way? There's something that makes me feel really uncomfortable about it. And, I know Mark put out his article a couple of weeks ago about, what Big Finish are doing with revoicing, dead actors. It just doesn't sit very well with me. I think we need to appreciate people while they're there in their roles, and obviously when they pass on, that we have to acknowledge that, perhaps, that era has passed, and not try and recreate it or bring it back in some way. But yeah, I mean, I would be open to, obviously, other spin-offs. I mean, I don't know whether multi-universe kind of covers other formats. Does it have to be TV, or can it be done in a different format, to bring back different, different characters. But yeah, I'm open to it. I just wonder whether there is the finance to kind of, to fund it all as well, because I'm assuming our finances are a bit more constrained than they were in 2005 onwards. We're in a different era now, so fantastic if it happens, and I'll watch it. As long as it's not class, that's fine.
Oof.
Well, being honest, it was okay, but it wasn't great. So I think
That wasn't
I
even.
think I think I think they would need a really good concept if they're going to look at multi-universe series. The concept has got to be really strong at the beginning. And you've got to really think carefully about who you're going to bring back for it. But yeah, I'm on board if it happens. It would be great to have more content, definitely.
That wasn't even passive aggressive, Maria. That was just a straight on the nose. As long as it's not class. Brilliant.
Yeah.
It can't be class, Maria, because Fad is too busy filming as the 14th Doctor, so he can't do both.
True.
Very true.
Yeah, true.
Very true.
Are we going to put a bet on
okay.
who we think the 14th Doctor is going to be? I think we should put a bet on who we think it might be. And then whoever wins has to buy the drinks.
All right, we'll come on to that, and we'll wrap up the show with that one. Let's go, Jordan. If you can hear us, Jordan. Same question to you, buddy.
On audio, it doesn't bother me so much having different actors play characters where the originals passed away. Although it did take me a while to warm to is he Tim Trelaw who plays the new one? It took me a while to warm to him, I think, a little bit. But I think on screen, I think it's I don't know, sacrilegious.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to look up what deep fake meant. I can't even say it. So I don't know, because I think with that, have you got to have the mannerisms of the original actor down, as well as, obviously your face is CGI'd, but I don't know. Yeah, no, television, I don't really like the idea of anybody coming back. On audio, it's fine. But I think multiverse stuff could be quite interesting. I think a spin-off, one or two, I'd be very, very happy with. But yeah, no, I think on audio it's fine, recasting and stuff like that. But on TV, maybe not so much.
Okay, that's fair enough, dude. And I think, do you know what, guys? I think I'm the only one that actually wouldn't mind a little bit of that. A little bit controversial, that they're going against the grain of the group, but I'm not talking about the idea of having a multiverse within the spin-offs and stuff. I think that would be cool if that's done right, but I don't know. I think if you could imagine a story revolving around the 14th Doctor and somehow running into the first Doctor, but the first Doctor's not in it throughout the whole thing, there's just maybe a couple of scenes, and that was done in exactly the same quality as the recent Luke Skywalker stuff that was done in the Book of Boba Fett, I think that would be amazing. I think that would be such a cool thing, because like we were talking about before we started recording, the first time that they tried to do that in The Mandalorian, it looked a little bit janky, and there was something about it that was off, and you thought they've given it a good go, like in Rogue One where they did it with Peter Cushing playing Moff Tarkin, and you could see that it was almost there. They were kind of, on their way to having it to the uncanny valley kind of thing, but it just wasn't there. But then in that recent stuff in the Book of Boba Fett with Luke Skywalker, that was another level. Now, the yardstick for me is that if my dad happened just to walk in and watch me watching the Book of Boba Fett, he'd be like, "Wasn't that chap from those old Star Wars films he used to watch? How is he in these now then?" He wouldn't be able to wrap his head around it. He'd be like, "But that's the same guy that was in that stuff that was out 40 years ago. how is he now here? I'm like, Dad, don't worry about it. Just go and put the kettle on. So, but I think if it was a bit janky and he could pick it out and be like, well, that's obviously really bad computer generated graphics, that's the kind of thing that does it for me. So I think if you absolutely nailed it, and like Maria said, it's probably out of reach potentially for Bad Wolf at the moment and the budgets that British Broadcasting have got to do. But I do feel like it would be amazing if there were a few scenes and it was done really well to that quality where Troughton would just walk in and do something, or so. I don't know. I don't mean to say it from like a place of disrespect, or anything like that. I just do feel like it could be an amazing moment. If you can imagine just the culmination of, a build up to a story, and you think, well, surely they're not going to have the First Doctor in it, and it's just going to be crap if they do. But then he actually walks into the TARDIS set, and it's actually him, and it's 99.9999% accurate to what it would actually look like if he was alive. I would love that. I would absolutely love it. So a bit controversial, but I think I'm going against the grain of the group.
I think.
Do you know what's funny is I don't.
Sorry, Adam, you go.
I was just going to say, do you know what's funny is I don't have a problem with the fact that David Bradley was cast as Hartnell and also Richard Hundrell. I always get his name wrong. But I feel like I should, because I've been sat here thinking about what I've just said, and I thought, actually, but I don't have a problem with that. And why don't I? Because I absolutely love William Hartnell. So theoretically, I should have an issue with the fact he's been recast twice. But for some reason, I don't. Maybe because I liked the performances of the actors. I don't know. Just realised that I've sort of got a bit of confusion in my mind there.
I don't think that's confusion, though, Adam. I think it's very different. I think to recast an actor, to have Richard Hurndall play William Hartnell, well, to play the First Doctor, I should say, or have David Bradley play the First Doctor, because that is an actor playing a part. Fine, it's an actor playing a part that was immortalised by somebody else. But I think when you start going down the route of this person's dead, let's, for want of a better phrase, reanimate them, I think you are on completely different territory. So I think you're not contradicting yourself by saying you have no issue with David Bradley, but you would have an issue with a kind of CGI William Hartnell. And let's be honest with ourselves here. They don't have LucasFilm money. And even the LucasFilm stuff, I know, Gary, you're very complimentary of it. It's still not quite there for me. There's still a kind of deadness behind the eyes. And there's still, so if they can't quite iron it out, God only knows what a CGI William Hartnell would look like in a Doctor Who anniversary special.
It'd be like that Web of Fear animated Charlton.
Do you know what's really impressive, though? Oh, sorry, go on, Maria.
No, I was going to say, I think Mark's kind of spot on with that. It's okay to recast a character. Although saying that, David Bradley as the First Doctor, for some reason, I kind of felt a bit strange about watching him be the First Doctor. But then when I watched the Five Doctors, I didn't have a problem with Richard Hurndall. And maybe it was because of the amount of time that's passed. And maybe it just felt a bit strange kind of recasting the First Doctor after all these years. I don't know why. I felt a bit strange about watching David Bradley as the First Doctor. I must admit, it did feel a bit strange for me. But yeah, I think Mark's got it spot on. I think it's okay to recast a character, but actually using William Hartnell's image, I think, would feel really peculiar. So yeah.
And I just want to point out, to stop myself sounding like a hypocrite, I don't have an issue with recasting, but I know I wrote a whole article about Big Finish recasting. So I just want to clarify that I don't have an issue with it used sparingly. I think if we're doing it in this kind of way, which I think Big Finish are, and I think Doctor Who runs the risk of, is just completely folding in on itself and becoming completely obsessed with its own past and having to constantly kind of churn out new adventures for the Third Doctor, new adventures for the Second Doctor ad nauseum, which does, I think, not so much the recasting, but the constant reiterating of those stories and those characters, I think devalues the legacy of the actors in a way and of the era. But that's a whole separate topic, I guess.
I think that the reason why Big Finish are probably putting a bit of a push on that stuff is this is going to sound very depressing, but it's probably a bit of foreshadowing for what's to come, because just the very nature of the age of all of the actors who are playing the role of the Doctor for Big Finish at the moment, when you take out Chris Eccleston coming back and David Tennant and so on, I hate saying it, but they're not going to be around for too much. I'd hate even saying it. You know what I'm trying to say? They're not going to be around for another, 20, 30 years to record Big Finish. Let's be realistic.
Haven't they got like about 3 years worth of stuff in the can of Tom Baker? They've got
about 10 years worth.
So much for Tom, which is
yeah.
Which is really weird to think that they're going to be releasing stuff after he died.
Yeah,
And I don't know how I'm going to feel about that.
In front of a microphone.
It feels like it. Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is that if you were Nicholas Briggs or somebody who was running the show at Big Finish, in a way, you've only got a finite amount of time to run your business. Because once those actors sadly leave us, and then after that time you've run out of all of the recorded content that they've done, what do you do then? Because I would probably say that 85% of all of Big Finish's content is Doctor Who, I think. So you have to do something. You have to start, integrating other actors playing the Doctors into it now, so that by the time that stuff starts to roll around and happen, you've got some kind of smooth transition, that you've got other actors who can still play those parts. So
yeah, but
it's a bit depressing and morbid to think about it. But
you say that, Gary, but I don't think you have to actually do it. I think the idea would be to find new avenues of exploring. I mean, I don't know whether they've got licenses for the new series, but we've got David Tennant, we've got Matt Smith, we've got Christopher Eccleston. They can explore those eras, because they're more recent. I mean, I think there is a finite amount of classic stories that you can tell. My issue is that they're trying to plug every single gap that there is in the classic series, but I don't think we actually need that. I think we have to, as fans, be able to use our imagination sometimes, with what happens with these characters. We don't need to know every single little thing that they do. That's my point of view anyway. I've been a fan for a number of years, and I don't think I need to know everything that Joe Grant has ever done or that Sarah Jane Smith has ever done. I think I can use my imagination, when I don't see her on television.
And also from a business
Maria's having none of it.
I agree with Maria, and I think also from a business standpoint.
Yeah, I do.
I imagine Christopher Eccleston, Tom Baker, David Tennant, they must be their big sellers, right? I just don't know how many other people are buying some of the niche elements of Big Finish, but then maybe it's just that streaming service model where you do find things with niche appeals. And you make so much of it for so many different audiences, which is kind of happening more and more nowadays, that you just sort of pinpoint audiences to appeal to. And then you kind of have even though you're not actually necessarily making that much from one particular product or range, you've got another range which, has another set of fans that want to buy it. It's an interesting approach. But I don't know how much longer they can keep doing it once those actors are no longer with us. But that's a bit depressing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, more from a business point of view. So if your livelihood and your job at Big Finish depends on the sale of stories by those Doctors, and then at some point they sadly leave us, which inevitably will happen, and then you have no stories to sell, then what do you do? And like Maria said, there's always that. You go down the, well, let's be creative. Let's write a whole bunch of new stuff with new characters based on all the new stuff from Doctor Who and so on. But then, do you get the license? How affordable is the license to get the newer stuff of Doctor Who? It's probably considerably more expensive than the classic years and all that stuff. So, yeah, I just get the feeling that now that I think I mentioned this earlier as well, that now that the floodgates are open and this sort of stuff has started to appear in mainstream stuff, even though the budget is probably quite vast, needed to do it properly and, mostly convincing, I do feel like you give it a few years. This always happens with TV and film production. It happens with, not just visual effects, but it happens with all sorts of things where there'll be some film or TV series will start to do it, and then it just trickles down, and then before you know it, all TV and film are kind of got their hands on that technology, and because it's become cheaper and more available and so on. So I do get the feeling that it will pop up in Who at some point. I've just got a niggly feeling that it's going to happen, but whether it should happen or not, a bit of an Ian Malcolm moment. You've got all this tech that it's enabled you to do it, but you didn't stop to think if you should. I don't know the answer to that bit, but and I don't even know Russell's thoughts on this stuff. Do we think that he's up for it? If someone, a Bad Wolf, who's a bit of a nerd, is like, dude, I can do I can do a Hartnell thing in this scene for you, and I'll do it at home in the basement at the weekend. It'll be amazing. And he's like, all right, cool. Or if he's like, no, that's disrespectful, we don't do that. So who knows is the big thing. And
I've just had a thought. Maybe what they could do is go back, and some of the monsters that were really bad in classic Who, they could just use deep fake and just kind of redo them. Things like the Merca, or I'm just trying to think of really bad monsters. The Asboloff from the new series, maybe they could do that. No issue with that.
The Peter Kay thing?
It's a great design.
The Absorbaloff.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Honestly,
I'm talking about the face in a paving slab.
How do you motion capture a Merca anyway? That's what I'm intrigued to find out.
No, there's a question.
Well, I mean,
sounds like how do you?
I'm just talking off the top of my head, but any monster that's been a bad monster in Who, they could just go and do a deep fake on it
for weeks. Yeah, yeah. Okay, then. So to round this off, then Harry's been very quiet. Harry, final question: do you? I think we've probably addressed that. I think we can agree that right now it's probably not feasible based on money. I think we can agree on that. But I do think in the future, over the next few years, that technology will be more widely available, and they'll start to explore the opportunities of that. Do you think that they should do that?
My inclination would be. Do you know what? Yeah, I think they should do, because I think by exploring that avenue, you can better understand whether it's the right or the wrong thing to do. Because I mean, like we say, the technology is there, and it's fairly new technology, so I don't feel like it's been around enough for you to kind of make sort of definitive conclusions as to whether it's fully right or fully wrong. Maybe it's a bit of both. I mean, it's not black and white, is it? So yeah, I think yes, not because I'm overly enthusiastic about the idea, more just because we'd get more of a hold on whether it's acceptable, whether people like it or don't like it, or whether it and ultimately I think what it boils down to is whether or not it serves the narrative and serves the narratives that they're trying to tell. So yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, cool. Jordan, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Jordan? We've established that the technology will probably be available in the next few years, but do you think they should implement the deepfake stuff in Doctor Who or not?
If it becomes available and it's cheaper for people to use, maybe I think it would be quite nice to see people playing these characters again, but
Maybe. On the fence is Jordan. Okay. Ads. Shouldn't we? Or no?
Now you've already asked me, mate. I was a definite no.
Oh, you're definitely, of course you are.
Well, actually,
Mark.
Yeah, I'll say no.
Mark, I know your views on it, but if the opportunity presented itself, should they say, get out of
I
here?
think as a de-aging thing, fine, knock yourself out. If you want Peter Davison to look like he did in 1982, go for it. if it serves. But again, as Harry says, if it serves the story, because I think we are in danger. And I think one of if Doctor Who's and actually this is why Gary is saying wonder what Russell thinks of it. I can't help but feel he wouldn't be that interested. I know he's on record saying, yeah, you would have a 10th Doctor spin-off and an 11th Doctor spin-off. But if you look back at what he did when he came back to Doctor Who, it was stripped it right back down to basics. And I just can't see... But then, the success of the new Spider-Man film, all that kind of stuff,
Exactly.
I don't know. We'll see. We will see.
Yeah. It's almost like you can't have a successful franchise at the moment without it having some kind of crossover and multiverse stuff to be successful. I don't know. Who knows? It's going to be exciting, though, to find out over the next few years. I'm not sure how long Russell's contracted to be showrunner for. But talking of Russell taking over, let's round out the show then. Overall, we're going to have a very quick question. Maria said we should put a bet on this. So who's the name that you would put forward as the next Doctor? Harry. Next Doctor, number 14.
Well,
Who
it's
is it
going
for
to be
you?
CGI William Hartnell, of course. No, I think it's going to be... I honestly have no idea, but at the minute, for some reason, my gut is saying Fadi El Said from Class. Not sure why, but yeah. Or,
Okay.
what's the name of that female actor from It's a Sin? Lydia West. Yeah. I have a feeling it's going to be either Fadi or Lydia.
Interesting. Fadi from Maria's favourite show. Mark, who's it for you?
God. I can't go Lydia West because then the bet doesn't work. So God. I'm just going to put this out there, and it definitely won't happen. But my good friend and podcast co-host Ben suggested Sally Hawkins as Doctor Who, and since he suggested it, I haven't been able to get the image out because that would be great casting. So I'm going to just wild card it, Sally Hawkins.
Nice. If that one comes true, you're in for some money for that one. Co-host Adam. Well, I know we spoke about this on the show earlier, actually, but
Yeah.
who's it for you, buddy?
I must admit, I wouldn't be, if it was Lydia West, I wouldn't be disappointed. I think she would be cool. But as Harry's nicked that one, and I can't think of another one on the spot, so I'm just going to say that I would have quite liked Vicky McClure, but she's kind of ruled it out in no uncertain terms, so I don't think I'm going to win the bet, but I think she would have been cool.
Okay, cool. Jordan, can you hear us, dude? Jordan.
Yep. I think is she called Tina Miller? She's the actress. Yep. She was in The Haunting of Bly Manor. She was in that. I think she'd be really good. Or Hayley Atwell. I think she'd be really good as well.
Hayley Atwell. Interesting.
Yep.
Oh,
yep. Peggy Carter herself. I think she'd be. Yep. I think she'd be very, very good. But yeah, no, I think either of those two. I don't know who this Lydia person is at all. So
she's in It's a Sin and a couple of other things that Russell's done. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, okay. well, maybe it is then. If
she was also in Dracula,
yes,
that Moffat and Gatiss did as well, I think.
Yes, yeah, you'd know her, Jordan. If you saw her, you'd know her. Yep.
No, she was in the third episode, which was set in the modern day. I can't remember what her character was called, but yeah.
Do you know, she probably wouldn't do it, but Keeley Hawes, I think, would be really good as a female Doctor. Yeah, I think she would be excellent. I don't think she'd do it, but I would love to. And she's already been in it, but that doesn't matter. But I think she'd be excellent.
There are some hilarious options. Like I've seen Matt Berry is a name that's been thrown out. That would be hilarious. And,
Old Toast, yeah.
But I'm going to say Chris Barry using the voice of Mr. Britas from the Britas Empire. I think would be
what's Colin with his assistant.
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Britas.
I think that would be good. No, seriously, I think. Oh no, Mr. British. I think I would go for, if it were me, if I was a betting man, I would go for a bit of an outsider. I would go for a guy called Amari Douglas, who's a bit of an outsider. So he was also in It's a Sin, so he's worked with Russell before, and a couple of other bits. Mainly a theatre actor, so he's got some really good acting chops. But I think he's just such a great actor. I think he'd bring a lot of energy and stuff. So as a bit of an outsider, I don't know, his name's been mentioned just a couple of times, but not too heavily. But I'd go with the outsider. I think the things like Chris Marshall's and Richard Ayoade and stuff, they're all just too obvious, and they've been said a billion times before. So right, some good choices there. So if any one of those comes to fruition,
I don't think Maria's given
I've left
her
Maria
bet
out, haven't I?
Yet,
of course,
for the next Doctor.
Of course, I'm sorry, Maria. Sorry. What have you got?
Well, to be honest, I don't have a clue who it could be, but I'm going to take a wild guess. So, and I don't think either of these are probably going to be it. But if it's a woman, Olivia Colman, who I would love to actually do it, but I don't think there's any chance the show would get her. And she's been in it before as well, already. And if it's a male, Ben Whishaw, who was in the James Bond films.
Okay.
Yes, it's a good choice.
Yeah, I think it will be somebody that we probably haven't heard of. I think it might be somebody from the theatre, possibly. But it'd be really interesting.
I would prefer that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd like
Russell's
it if it
going
was.
to do a George Lucas and just do an unknown. Yeah, and not go stardom. Yeah. Okay, so if one of our guesses or predictions is correct, what do we get? Do we get a pint bought for us at the next thing that we're all at? What's the thing? Some Krispy Kreme donuts? What do we get?
So is
Probably
the
a pint's a good one.
to the BFI. I hope they don't announce the 14th Doctor before next Sunday because I'm skint.
You're just yeah, timing's important with this one. Yeah. Okay, some good ones. I'm not going to reel them off because I can't remember what you all said, but some good ones. I'll listen back and make a note of it so that I can bug you all when it does get announced and throw some praise on you or some humorous disgust at your poor choices. So anyway, we're going to wrap there for the February roundtable. It's been very, very cool as always, guys. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your evenings to come and chat and waffle about some, I wouldn't say controversial Doctor Who subjects, but we did have a bit of a close to the knuckle. Should they, shouldn't they? Is it right or wrong? Anyway, so we'd love your thoughts, dear listener. If you want to hit us up on the Twitter, just do that over at Big Blue Box PCast. You can find us on Twitter. It gives us your thoughts on that stuff. You remember to follow and subscribe to the podcast in your fave podcast app so you won't miss a show when it lands every Friday. And also the monthly roundtable. They land once a month with this lot, which is good. We're on the socials too, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Links on the website, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. And we have a free Discord server, link on the website. Hop in and chat some cool Doctor Who with some other Who fans. And as always, where can we find people? You know where to find Adam. It's the Geek's Handbag over on YouTube. We shove that down your throat every week. So you should know about that by now. Mark, you do another podcast or two, don't you?
Yeah, I do On the Time Lash. So at On the Time Lash on Twitter, if you want to follow me, although God knows why you'd want to do that. I'm at Old Man Crondas, and I usually pop up in various places talking about Doctor Who. It's all I have. It's all I have.
Pops up. He's a meerkat. Pops up and talks Doctor Who. Jordan, you write for us, of course, but you also write for some other places, don't you?
Yep. So the other one I normally write for is the Doctor Who Companion. So I do quite a few articles on there as well. Good. Maria, you're exclusive to the Big Blue Box. Signed an exclusivity contract. Sure.
Yeah, I'm exclusive to the Big Blue Box and the NHS at the moment. So yeah, unfortunately.
And Harry, you write for us as well. Anything else you're up to?
Just doing a lot of actory bits. I'm an actor, so if you want to find out more about that, I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
Is it too late to bet
Actually,
that Harry's going to be the 14th Doctor?
Oh, I wish.
Is it too late to change my bet?
You just read my mind, Mark.
I wish. Maybe the 15th. Who knows?
We've all missed the trick. It's been staring us literally in the face.
Cat's
the
out
whole
the
time.
bag, guys.
Harry's the next Doctor. Right, so that's going to do it there, fine folk who have listened this month. It's been great to have you here for another one. So we'll see you next time. God knows what we're going to talk about on the next one, but we'll keep you up to speed on the socials and stuff. So, Maria, thank you very much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Gary.
Thank you very much, Harry.
Thank you so much. It's been a really interesting discussion tonight, and I've really enjoyed it.
Mark, thank you, dude.
Thank you.
Co-host, Mr. Adam, thank you, dude.
Cheers, man. 2 podcasts in one day. We're rocking today.
We are rocking, professionals. And Jordan, thank you very much, dude. Putting up with your cyber mats.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm looking forward to listening to this because I didn't hear half of it. So I shall look forward to listening to this.
Cool. Right, we're going to round this out. You're going to do it this time because you very well the last 2 times you've done it. We'll see you next time. And remember...
LucasFilm.
You guys are
Sorry, I was a
amazing.
bit early there.
God, that nearly took the meter off the edge.